concerns about blemishes, but her skin looks pretty good to me, frankly. So this is a great exercise, though, because I find that people tend to position mineral as always being very dewy. And some people are turned off by that and think, well, I prefer a matte finish. I guess I can't use mineral. Again, it's how you manipulate it. And if you have texture issues, anything that's raised, then you want that skin to be very smooth and very matte versus dewy. Dewy will exaggerate what you're trying to minimize. So at her age, of course, she's not going to really need the intensity of the Pep Up Gel, so we won't use that. We'll go straight into primer. And the primer we have that's designed for what her concern is the Let Me Be Clear primer, or its new name going forward is just Skin Mattifying Primer. This is our most matte finish, and also has a unique serum of tea tree and clary sage and lemongrass to act as an anti-inflammatory and help calm existing and heal existing blemishes. Also, the tone of the primer is very unique. If you compare it to the other primers, it's actually almost more of a gold-green tone, so it neutralizes redness very effectively and really mutes the texture of any existing blemishes. So we'll do just one side first. She can detail in sections, or she can do that larger amount and just do the whole face at once. It's up to her. It'll probably be different every day. Go ahead and look upward at the ceiling for me. That's great, thank you. So this combination of the salicylic and the inert property of the zinc and titanium in the primer really helps keep the skin matte and also acts as kind of a sponge. So as she produces oil, the primer absorbs it versus it coming out onto her skin. So what we also find is that when skin that is prone to breakout is more shielded, then it stays calmer and doesn't have that excess sebum production. So it really helps with balancing. And because it's particulate, it's entirely non-occlusive. So anyone prone to congestion isn't, again, bothered by the product. So for acneic issues, it's really a great option. So we've given her that more ivory golden tone with her primer. And then rather than use the loose mineral, which involves lots of polishing, we don't want that luminous finish, we're going to go to pressed in a single palette that matches her skin tone, but we're going to use it wet. The pressed wet is the most matte finish you can achieve with Colorescience. And also, if you have issues with makeup meltdown, midday you look in the mirror and everything seems to be melted away, the pressed wet is what I call rock solid. It's there all day, doesn't get shiny, and is ideal for long performance over a long day, say for a bride example. So let's look at a tone that's going to work for her. Let's start with Light as a Feather. Again, we're matching to the neck. Can you turn sideways just a bit for me? So Light as a Feather gives, I think, a good example of how this color is slightly too light for her, and it's making her look a little bit chalky. It's not, terrible, but it's not going to be a good choice because of that. So we'll slide up in depth to what's called All Even. And All Even is a deeper, again, clear gold tone. And we'll see how this looks for her on the other side. Now, you see how that just meshes with the tone of her chest, her neck, her collarbone. So we're making her face even more like the rest of her body by choosing that color. She won't have what I call floating head syndrome. So the key is, well, you have two options really. If you're going to always use it wet, you can wet the press directly. But going forward, you'll need to always activate it again. So there is that option. we tend to recommend, to give people the option of using it both wet and dry, to actually not wet it directly. So take your dry sponge, or it can be a dry foundation brush, or whatever the client's in the habit of using, and you're pressing and sliding. It's not a dig, it's a slide. And when you're using it wet, you should load your sponge more generously than if you were going to use it dry. And of course, her mist of choice will be the mist for oil-rich or congestion-prone skin. This has a combination of lime and pomegranate and orange blossom, and really helps keep the skin purer and helps balance it. So generously, and then we're going to use the sponge like a paintbrush and just paint. So we're using the flexible end versus the block end. You're holding the block end, you're moving the flexible end, and she can just paint. So the benefit of this painting technique is that one side has no foundation on it. So you're applying it, and then your side that's free of foundation is blending it. Applying, blending, applying, blending. It's a really easy technique for the inexpert to do, and it's fast. So we've given her a much more unified tone. Her other option is she can press and rock on areas that maybe are even more challenging. She can keep those areas even more matte by moving her sponge less. And then, because she hasn't wet it directly, she can go back with a concealer brush, and she can use it for under eye brightening or any other areas that maybe are being a little bit more stubborn. Can you look upward for me? So she's taking that right up to the lash line. She's a bit pink around the nose. She can detail there. So then again, she wouldn't want to do lots of motion with the loose blush. It's going to give her that too polished texture. So she would do very well with the Beauty on the Go because she could press it on. So we'll use a brush, but we'll use that press and rock technique, and we'll work with the rose and the bronze together. Turn sideways for me. And so we're going to that very, very underside of the bone, and we're just pressing. Press and rock, press and wiggle. However it makes sense to describe it to you. The key is, once you're on the skin, you're staying there. So it gives her a matte cheek. And because this is a very clear part of her complexion, she could do a pop of shimmer there on the very top of the bone. So great for her to use her retractable brush for that and make it very domed, and use her champagne and her ivory. And you can do a really pretty hint of sheen just in that one spot. And I find that the prettiest face really is a combination of textures. So if everything is matte, it can be a bit flat. So a little pop of something that's reflective in an area where you're naturally very smooth is flattering. And then of course, she could use the rose as a tint on her lips. We'll also incorporate some of the polish first. So we'll lay her foundation down with the polish, which we know is going to be a tint that will match her lips really well. Turn this way just a bit and part your lips for me just a bit. So the polish likes a neutral surface. It shouldn't be wet. It shouldn't be waxy. And you truly can just windshield wiper it, slide it. It shouldn't be thick. This is one of our probably most concentrated products, and it's a huge value. It lasts forever. So you're getting a tremendous bargain with this. So we've given her that nice sort of healthy tone, and she can use her rose, and we'll also add some champagne to it. And we'll add some lip shine so she's protected. So rose, champagne, the brush is dry, then it's wet. And once it is wet, you're not going back into it. And this will turn her matte rose tone lip to more of a soft, dusty rose tone with a subtle metallic quality. Look straight ahead for me. Which is, again, a pretty contrast to her matte skin. So we have a matte quality, a sheen on the brow bone, and then more of a metallic lip. And then the other key factor is when someone wants to stay very matte, you don't want to incorporate the mist at the end. That's going to cause it to become too glowy again. We know that happens immediately. So we've incorporated the mist as a way of wetting her sponge, but then not again after that. And she wouldn't want to mist during the day as well because she would get glowier and glowier. So this is a simple way to do that very matte look.